Welcome back to another episode of Good Clean Commander. I'm Ken,
And I'm Ashley.
and we got some fun shenanigans lined up for you. Ash, do you want to tell us who's playing with us?
Yeah, so today we have our friend Aaron, who's in a lot of our games, who's part of the crew, and then also that milk guy, aka Shaf. We are always so happy to cast spells with them. It's been a blast, so we're super happy to have
Right.
both of our friends here with us today.
Yeah, Shaf has become a permanent Good Clean Commander crewmate, which has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, without any further ado, I should we go introduce decks?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool shenanigans, so let's jump on into the gameplay. So let's
All right.
have
A
good,
good,
clean,
clean.
game.
You
I
did
just
it.
feel like we get bonus points when we remember.
Yeah.
Ken is playing Gavi Nest Warden. This deck wants to gain value through cycle synergies with Gavi's ability to make a token army and bonk face. In Ken's starting hand, he has a Weathered Wayfarer, Vanquish the Horde, Roar of Resistance, Rael the Everwise, a Plains, Scalding Tarn, and a Sacred Foundry. Shaf, aka that mill guy, is playing Phelddagrif Group Hug. This deck wants to help his opponents gain resource advantages with card draw, extra land drops, mana cost reduction effects, and hoping to win through self-mill combos. This cute little hippo is one to watch out for. And in Shaf's starting hand, he has a Ristic Study, Commander Sphere, Helm of Awakening, Arcane Signet, Hallowed Fountain, Pit of Offering, and a Temple of Mystery. Aaron is playing Kellan the Fae-Blooded. This spooky Voltron commander wants to win through commander damage and his commander's ability to pump Aaron's other creatures to dish out some serious damage. And in Aaron's starting hand, he has Sigarda's Aid, All That Glitters, Sacred Foundry, Terramorphic Expanse, Spectator Seating, Rogue's Passage, and a Plains. I am playing Huatli, Poet of Unity. This stompy dino typo deck wants to win through combat damage by cheating out big threats for free and leaning into my Commander Saga ability to keep the pressure on my opponents. And in my starting hand, I have a Canopy Vista, Galta Primal Hunger, Warstorm Surge, Pant Laza, Sun Favored, a Forest, Plains, and a Mountain. Ken starts off the game by drawing and playing a Sacred Foundry as land for turn. He chooses to pay 2 life to have it enter untapped, and then casts a Weathered Wayfarer for 1. He then passes the turn to Shaf. Shaf draws and plays a tapped Temple of Mystery and scries 1. He puts the card to the bottom and passes to Aaron. Aaron draws and plays a Spectator Seating. He then pays 1 to cast a Sigarda's Aid and passes to me. I draw and play a tapped Canopy Vista and pass to Ken. Ken untaps, draws for turn, and plays a Scalding Tarn. He pays 1 to go down to 37 life to fetch up a Roging Triome. He then passes to Shaf. Shaf untaps, draws, and plays a Command Tower's land for turn. He then follows that up by paying 2 for a Helm of Awakening, which discounts all player spells by 1 colorless mana. He then passes to Aaron. Aaron untaps, draws for turn, and plays a Sacred Foundry. He then chooses to also shock it in, paying 2 life to have it enter untapped and goes to 38 life. Paying 1 thanks to the Helm, Aaron then casts his commander on their adventure side, Birthright Boon, to fetch up a Curse of Opulence. He then passes the turn to me. I untap, draw for turn, and play a mountain. I then pay 2 for a Nature's Lore and put a Jetmir's Garden into play tapped. I then moved instep where Ken pays 1 to tap his Weathered Wayfarer to fetch a Reliquary Tower to put it into his hand. In response to Ken's Weathered Wayfarer activation, Aaron flashes in the Curse of Opulence thanks to Sigarda's Aid and places it on Ken. Now whenever we attack Ken, both Aaron and the person attacking Ken make a gold token. Ken then starts his turn, untaps, and draws. He plays a Training Center and then pays 2 for a discounted Rael the Everwise. Now whenever Ken cycles a card, he'll draw 1 from Rael when it's the first time each turn. He then passes to Shaf. Shaf untaps and draws and plays a Hallowed Fountain, paying 2 life to shock it in, so it enters untapped. He goes to 38 life. He then pays 1 and casts an Arcane Signet and follows it up by paying 2 for a Rites of Flourishing. This allows each player to draw an additional card on their turn and play an additional land. He then plays an Exotic Orchard as his second land for turn, and then paying 2, he casts a Rhystic Study. With that spicy turn, he passes to Aaron. Aaron untaps, now draws 2 cards, and plays 2 planes. He then casts Rograth, Son of Rogath for 0, and then pays 1 for the Rhystic Study. Aaron then casts Kellan, the Fae-Blooded. This time he does not pay the 1, so Shaf draws. With that, he passes the turn to me. I untap, draw 2 cards, and play a Plains along with a Forest. Paying 2, I then cast Domri, Anarch of Bolus. Rhystic Study triggers, and I pay the 1. Upticking Domri to 4 loyalty counters, I make a floating green mana, and now my creature spells can't be countered this turn. Paying 2, I then cast my commander, Huatli, Poet of Unity. Rhystic triggers, and I pay the 1. On Huatli's ETB, I fetch up a basic forest and put it to hand. With that, I pass the turn to Ken. On my instep, Ken activates Wayfarer and grabs an irrigated farmland. Ken then untaps, draws 2, and plays a Plains and a Reliquary Tower. Paying 2 and the Rhystic Study attacks, Ken casts Smuggler's Share, which allows Ken at instep to make a treasure whenever an additional land is put into play, and draw an additional card whenever a player draws a second card for turn. The table laughs at how synergistic this is with Rites of Flourishing. He then passes to Shaf. Shaf untaps, draws 2 cards, and plays a forest as land for turn. Shaf then pays 2 for a Commander Sphere. He then pays 4 to cast Garruk, Primal Hunter. Shaf then plays a tapped Port Town. Upticking Garruk to 4 loyalty counters, Shaf then makes a 3/3 beast token. On Shaf's instep, Smuggler Share triggers. In response to the trigger, Aaron flashes in and all that glitters and attaches it to his commander. This gives Kellan +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment he controls. Shaf draws from Rhystic since Aaron can't pay the 1. Ken then draws and makes his treasure. Aaron starts his turn, draws 2, and plays Rogue's Passage and Terramorphic Expanse. He then pays 2 for a Draconic Destiny and attaches it to Kellan, giving them an additional 1/1 and flying. With Kellan now an 8/8 flying double striker, Aaron moves to combat and swings them at Shaf, and his Rogue Rack at Ken. Unable to block, Shaf takes 16 commander damage, going to 26 life, and Ken declares no blocks, going to 35 life. Curse of Opulence triggers, and Aaron makes a gold token. Second main phase, Aaron cracks his Terramorphic Expanse and fetches a mountain. He moves to end step where Ken's Smuggler Share triggers. In response to the trigger, Shaf casts Vision Skins, allowing each player to draw 2 cards. I then untap, draw 2 cards, and play a forest along with the Plains. I then pay 5 to flip my commander into its saga side, Roar of the Fifth People. This saga allows me to make 2 green 3/3 dinosaurs. I then pay 2 and cast a discounted Vanquish the Horde. Ken responds by activating the Weathered Wayfarer to grab a command tower. Since I can't pay the 1, Shaf draws. Aaron also responds by paying 2, using his gold token to cast a Boros Charm, giving his creatures indestructible. Rhystic Study triggers again, and Aaron pays the 1. Then all our creatures but Aaron's die. With that, I move to end step, and Smuggler Share triggers again. Ken untaps, draws 2 cards, and plays a command tower and a deserted beach. I realize I forgot to uptick Domri, and the table lets me move them to 5 loyalty. Ken then pays 4 to cast his commander, Gavi, Nest Warden. He doesn't pay the 1, and Shaf draws. Paying another 1, he casts an intangible virtue, giving his tokens +1/+1 in vigilance. He also doesn't pay the Rhystic tax on this one, and lets Shaf draw again. With that, he passes the turn to Shaf. Shaf untaps, draws 2, and plays an island. Paying 5, he casts Farewell, choosing creature and enchantments for its mode. Ken responds by paying 1 to counter it with Arcane Denial. Farewell is countered, and Ken doesn't pay for Rhystic, so Shaf draws a card. Shaf then plays a tapped Pit of Offering as his second land for turn, and chooses not to exile cards from anyone's graveyard. He then pays 2 for a Temple Bell and taps it for each player to draw a card. Shaf then pays another 2 and casts Scavenging Ooze. He then upticks Garruk to 5 loyalty and makes a 3/3 beast token. With that, he moves to end step, where Smuggler's Share triggers. Gavi also triggers because this was Ken's second card for turn. so Ken makes a 2/2 Dino Kitty token. Then Aaron starts his upkeep. Both Ken and Shaf draw for Arcane Denial's trigger, and then Aaron untaps, draws 2, and plays an Evolving Wilds. He then pays 4 to cast an Undo Spirit Dancer. Aaron doesn't pay the 1, so Shaf draws. Aaron follows it up by paying 2 for a Forging the Tyrite Sword. Undo Spirit Dancer triggers, and he makes a copy of it. For step 1, Aaron makes 2 treasure tokens from both of his sagas, and he doesn't pay the 1, so Shaf draws. Then, paying 1, Aaron casts Loyal Apprentice and lets Shaf draw for Aristic Study. Going to combat, Aaron's Loyal Apprentice triggers, and he makes a Thopter token with Haste. Deciding not to knock anyone out with commander damage, he swings a 13/13 double striking Kellan at Domri, Rograk at Garrick, and a Thopter at Ken. Domri is super hecka dead, Garrick is down to 3 loyalty, and Ken takes 3 damage in the air, going to 32 life. Second main phase, Aaron cracks Evolving Wilds and puts in a tapped mountain into play. He then passes the turn and Smuggler Share triggers. Ken, in response to the trigger, cycles a Flourishing Fox for free thanks to Gavi's ability and draws an additional card. This also allows him to make another cat token. I untap, draw, and my saga, Roar of the People, moves to step 2, where my dinos can tap for red, white, or green mana. I then play an Exotic Orchard as land for turn, and follow that up by paying 4 for a discounted Pantlaza Sun Favor, and choose not to pay the 1, so Shaf draws. On ETB, it discovers 4, where I can cast a spell 4 CMC or less for free, or put that card into hand. I hit a Heroic Intervention and put it into hand. I then pay 2 for a Goblin and Necromancer, which discounts my green or red spells by 1 colorless source. I also don't pay for Ristic. I then follow that up by paying 1 for Drover of the Mighty. I also let Shaf draw again, hoping that he finds an answer for Kellan. I then move to end step, where Ken draws from Smuggler Share and chooses to cycle an Ominous Seas. Gavi triggers, and he makes another Kitty Dino. Ken then untaps, draws 2, and plays an Irrigated Farmland as land for turn. He then uses 3 treasures to cast Roar of Resistance, which gives his creature tokens haste. Ken doesn't pay the 1 for this, or for the rest of the spells he casts. Ken then casts a Prava of the Steel Legion for 2 mana. This allows creature tokens on his turn to get an additional +1/+4 to their attack power on his turn. Moving to combat, Ken swings 3 Vigilant Kitty tokens at Aaron. In response to attacks, Aaron casts Path to Exile targeting Prava. Ken has no response, so Prava is exiled. As part of the cost 2 path, Ken grabs a basic island and puts it into play tapped. The 3 kitties turn into 4/3s, and Ken then uses Roar of Resistance ability to pay 2 mana to give each of his kitties +2/+0 to their attack power. Aaron then takes 18 damage, going to 20 life. Ken moves to end step, where Shaf then plays 1 to cast a Brainstorm, where he draws 3 and puts 2 cards from his hand back on top of his library. Shaf then untaps, and before he draws, flashes in a Dictate of Krufix, where each player then draws an extra card during their draw step. We all now draw 3 cards at the start of our turn. Shaf then moves to draw step and removes 3 counters from Garrick, killing them to draw cards equal to the highest power of creatures he controls, which is currently 3. Shaf then taps the Temple Bell, and we all draw another card. He then plays a Glacial Fortress as land for turn, and a Sky Cloud Expanse. Shaf follows that up by paying 2 for Call of the Gate Watch, where he can search his library for a Planeswalker and put it into his hand. He then grabs Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Shaf then pays 3 to cast Jace. This card lets him win the game when he has no cards in his library when he goes to draw. He follows that up by paying 3 for a Thought Lash, which allows him to remove the top card of his library to essentially mill himself, and this card is exiled when he activates that ability. This is part of a combo piece with Jace. Shaf then upticks Jace to mill himself 3 cards and then draw a card. In response to the loyalty counter activation, Shaf then activates Thought Lash. He activates this 1 at a time until he gets one card away from his library to win the game. Ken responds to the last activation of Thought Lash by channeling Otawara Soaring City to bounce the Jace back to Shaf's hand. In response, Shaf sacks his Commander Sphere to draw a card. Shaf had no other way to stifle this ability, and Jace is returned to hand. Jace returns to hand where his loyalty ability still goes off. Since Shaf has no cards to draw from an empty library, he is knocked out. Since Shaf is knocked out, there is no more end step and Ken's Smuggler Chair does not trigger. Aaron then starts his turn, where we return to drawing one card and playing one land. He plays a Sundown Pass as land for turn. Both Forging the Tyrite Sword sagas move to step 2 and he makes 2 more treasure tokens. Aaron then pays 8 for an Overwhelming Splendor. Undo Spirit Dancer makes a copy of it, and Aaron attempts to curse Ken and I. Now with both of us cursed, Ken and I have creatures that get reduced down to base power and toughness of 1/1, and they lose all abilities. Additionally, we can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. Aaron then moves to combat when his apprentice makes another hasty little Thopter. He swings Kellan at Ken, 2 Thopters and Rograk at me, and then on attack, Aaron makes a gold token. In response to attacks, I cast a Heroic Intervention to give my stuff indestructible. I then block the Rograk with Drover. Ken responds to attacks by casting a Path to Exile, attempting to get rid of Kellan. Aaron has no response, so Kellan's exiled. Aaron decides to return them to the command zone. And then Aaron grabs a basic Plains and puts it into play tapped for part of Path's cost. Resolving combat damage, I take 2 from the Thopters since Kellan is no longer giving them the damage boost, and Rograk dies when blocked by my Drover. Second main phase, Aaron pays 2 for a Charismatic Conqueror. Moving instep, Smuggler's Share should have triggered here with a treasure, thanks to the additional planes that Aaron had gotten. However, we had missed and forgotten at this point that Aaron had already played a Sundown Pass. I then moved to untap and draw, hoping to hit my enchantment removal. I sadly don't, and move the Roar of the 5th People to step 3, where I can search for a dino and put it into my hand. I realized when searching that my next card was going to be Fracturing Gust, and additional sadness ensues that I no longer have an answer to this heckin' enchantment. I then fetch up Gisheth, Sun's Avatar, and put it into hand. I pay 3 to cast Balaged and return Vanquish the Horde to hand. In response to Balaged, Ken pays 3 to cast Wipe Clean, targeting the Overwhelming Splendor that's cursed on him. Aaron has no response, so it's destroyed. I then pay 2 to cast Vanquish the Horde. In response, Ken cycles an Astral Drift, which allows him to exile his commander and return it to the battlefield at the next end step. With no other responses to the rest of our creatures are heckin' destroyed. I then follow that up by casting Garruk's Uprising for 3 mana, and pass to Ken. Gavi returns to the battlefield, and then Ken untaps, draws, and pays 6 for O'Hare Talk, Deepest Foundation. This triples the amount of tokens he makes. Ken uses his free cycle from Gavi to cycle a Lonely Sandbar to draw a card and makes 3 kitty tokens. Moving to combat, Ken attacks Aaron with Gavi and his cat tokens. Before damage, he pumps his creatures for an additional +2/+0 using Roar of Resistance to hit Aaron for 19 damage. Aaron has no response and is knocked out of the game. I untap, draw, and move to my commander's last step, which gives my non-existent dinos Double Strike and Trample. I then return Huatli to the command zone. Realizing I'm 1 mana short to cast Gisheth, I cast a Farseek, grabbing a Scattered Groves, and then I pay 5 for Xenagos and then pass to Ken. On my end step, Ken cycles Tectonic Reformation and draws. Ken then untaps, draws, and plays a Sundown Pass. He then pays 4 for a Mondrak Glory Dominus. Now his tokens can triple and then double the amount of tokens he makes. Then Ken pays another 4 and casts Anointed Procession. Now he can triple, then double the tokens he makes. Cycling a Valiant Rescuer, Ken makes 12 kitty tokens and draws a card. Now having a total of 15 kitty tokens, O'Hare and Gavi, Ken goes to combat and swings a lethal amount of damage at me. Before damage is dealt, Ken then pumps the Roar of Resistance to give everything an additional +2 to their attack power to bonk me out of existence, and I have no blocks or heckin' responses, so I'm knocked out of the game. GG's all.
So, a lot happened. It
Yeah.
was a explosive and fun
Zoomies? It was.
zoomies.
I think group hug should just be called Zoomies because it was between Rites of Flourishing, Helm of Awakening, and then all the Temple Bell and like all of those things. Shaf gave us so much card draw and ramp. It was wild.
That smuggler share worked overtime, and I don't think it will ever perform better than in that game.
That was the peak moment. And also, like, when that card hit the table and everyone's reaction was just to laugh because of it, like, clicking of how much value you were gonna get. That's how you know it's a good play.
That was a fun game, I have to admit. As for our shout out MVP card, there were a lot of, to be honest, there were a lot of good ones for this one. I think we kind of narrowed it down to Otawara in that very complex interaction stack situation between Shaf and myself.
Yeah.
Going back through it and kind of after the fact, I think we figured out a few through lines that, you know, maybe Shaf probably still could have got away with doing everything just with all the permanents out.
Yeah.
But like, it took us a while to resolve it as is. We just wanted to make sure we try to get as right as possible and go step by step. And it was just the reaction to him. You know, he expected a spell to counter, but something like a channel really threw him off. So it was a fun interaction.
Yeah, like not having the stifle to shut it down. Because it was funny because Shaf was like, I had the counter spell. I had a way to protect it. He's like, the only thing that stopped me or could have stopped me was that Otawara. So of all the removal pieces you had, that's really, really funny that it just worked out that way. But I think like the other MVP card too, though, was Rite of Flourishing just because of how much it changed the game and how fast the game got. And then I think Aaron also had a really cool play where he copied the was it Overwhelming Splendor?
Yeah, Overwhelming Splendor,
Yeah, and cursed both of us. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a very fun game, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Let us know your favorite plays, or let us know if I missed any triggers, because I probably did, because there was a lot going on.
God, there was so many things. I think I had tried to board wipe twice, and it still didn't matter either time. It was a wild game. But a fun one.
Yeah, you bet. And without giving too much away, we've got some fun, exciting, good, clean Commander stuff coming up. If you're to the end of the video, then I'm sure you'll be excited to see and hear it as we get closer to doing that. But in the meantime, we'd love it if you would like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It all means a ton, and we love you for it.
Yeah, smoochies, love, positivity, all that.
Affection.
Yes. Through internet strangers. That's everyone's favorite kind.
Yeah.
On that awkward note, have a good one.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.